Figure this out, man.
John, I love you.
Get me out of here! I can't be here anymore.
Here we go! 1, 2, 3, play!
Today's story is about an American named John Edward Jonas, who made a small decision one day that turned out to be catastrophic for him. This decision became the last mistake of his life. It was a strange and terrifying death in the history of caving. This is the story of the Nutty Putty Cave. The date was November 24th, 2009. John Edward, a 26-year-old, returned home with his wife to reunite with his family. To celebrate his arrival, his family organized a gathering and planned to create memorable experiences together. The plan was to explore the Nutty Putty Cave, located near Salt Lake City, Utah. This is the same area where 6 years earlier, Aaron Ralston had to amputate his arm after being trapped in a rock crevice for 3 days without food or water. Utah's caves are a popular destination, attracting 20,000 to 25,000 visitors annually. Perhaps you've even seen photos of this spot used as wallpapers. John was 26 years old, recently married to Emily. They had one child, and Emily was pregnant with their second. John was a medical student at the University of Virginia, studying pediatric cardiology. The family planned to visit Nutty Putty Cave at 8 p.m. on November 24th and return home a few hours later. However, what was about to happen was beyond anyone's imagination. This was John's first visit to the cave, but he had some caving experience from his childhood adventures with his younger brother. Nutty Putty Cave is generally considered suitable for beginner cavers, making it very popular. Even those with little experience can explore it without much fear. However, one section of the cave, known as the birth canal, is extremely challenging. It is narrow and tight, requiring even experienced cavers to squeeze through, often getting their hips and shoulders stuck. Despite their best efforts, they can become trapped, requiring rescue teams to intervene. This is why the cave was temporarily closed for several years, reopening in March 2009 with new safety rules. The new rules required cavers to obtain a permit 21 days in advance, and each group needed at least 2 experienced cavers. John and his 13-year-old brother Josh qualified as experienced cavers and secured the necessary permits. The family arrived at the cave entrance at 8 p.m. on November 24th, with the opening measuring just 30 inches. The group entered the cave, and everything went smoothly for the first hour. Everyone confidently moved forward. Then, John, Josh, and 2 friends stopped at a section called the Big Slide to consult the map. They decided to explore the most challenging part of the cave, the birth canal, located in its deepest section. The birth canal is so tight that only a few people manage to pass through. The passage involves a long, narrow stretch, followed by another equally tight section, leading to a small room where one can turn around and exit. The passage is so constricting that even experienced cavers feel claustrophobic and panicked. John and Josh reached the birth canal and entered. Unfortunately, they unknowingly took the wrong route. Believing they were in the birth canal, they actually ventured into a different, unmarked section. John advanced 15 feet further, maneuvering his body through tight spaces by folding his shoulders, waist, and legs. John found himself in the corkscrew section, a path that became tighter with each step. At this point, turning back was no longer an option due to the extreme narrowness of the passage. John assumed he was still in the birth canal and that a small room awaited him at the end where he could turn around. Driven by this belief, he pressed forward, and things took a turn for the worse. The corkscrew section requires cavers to be exceptionally small and flexible. To navigate, one must make a sharp 90-degree turn to the left while clinging to a rock ledge. John, standing 6 feet tall and weighing 90 kilograms, attempted to squeeze through the compact space. 5 years earlier, a 16-year-old boy named Brock Clark had become trapped in the same spot. At 5 feet 7 inches and 63 kilograms, it took rescuers 14 hours to free him. John's larger frame made the situation even more dire. Believing that an open space lay ahead, John pressed his stomach against the rocks and pushed forward, hoping to find an easier path. But what lay ahead would lead to a tragic ending. John was moving downward, deeper into the earth. He had no idea where he had ended up, a place no one had ever reached before. He was in an entirely new and unknown area. Despite being in an extremely tight and uncomfortable position, John tried to remain calm, hoping for an opening ahead. Suddenly, he began sliding down rapidly. Grabbing onto the walls, he shouted loudly, warning his brother Josh, "Josh, don't come here, don't follow me." To move further, John had to push himself forward using his shoulders. In the dim light of his headlamp, he caught a glimpse of a hole in the floor. Believing it might lead to a larger space, John felt a flicker of hope. However, this decision turned out to be the biggest and final mistake of his life. As John proceeded, he inserted his head into the hole, unaware that he was entering an even tighter and unknown tunnel. Unlike what he had imagined, there was no opening ahead. It was a dead end. The tunnel ended here, and the space was only about 18 inches wide, barely the size of a laptop screen. John was now completely inverted, with his head down and feet up, bent at an almost 70-degree angle. He tried to push himself back up, but found it impossible. One of his arms was trapped in an awkward position, while the other was pinned against his chest. John pushed against the walls with all his strength, but realized he couldn't move. His legs were wedged in the tightest part of the hole. He called out to Josh again, who was behind him in the corkscrew path. Unlike John, Josh positioned himself feet first and was able to retreat more easily. Hearing John's voice, Josh carefully approached and saw his brother trapped head first in the hole, with only his feet visible. Josh grabbed John's legs and attempted to pull him out, but the narrow passage made it impossible. Each time Josh tried, John would slip back to his initial position. Despite multiple attempts, they were unsuccessful, leaving them both frustrated. Josh realized they needed professional rescuers. The brothers decided that Josh would go for help, while John would try to stay calm and breathe slowly, as there was a limited supply of oxygen in the cave. Josh emerged from the cave and informed everyone about the situation, prompting a rescue team to be called in. The biggest challenge was that John was upside down, and the rescue doctors stated that this position could only be sustained for 8 hours before his organs would start failing, potentially leading to cardiac arrest. The first rescuer to reach John was a petite woman named Susie, who arrived at 12:30 a.m., 9 hours after John became trapped. Susie, only 5 feet 3 inches tall, managed to navigate the corkscrew path with relative ease. Upon reaching John, she greeted him, saying, "Hi John, my name is Susie. How's it going?" John replied, "Hi Susie, thank you for coming, but I really want to get out." Susie reassured him, saying, "Don't worry John, you're going to be out of here." However, Susie quickly realized the situation was worse than it seemed. She tied a rope around John's legs and tried to pull him out, but the friction in the narrow passage prevented any effective movement. Despite tearing her jeans to create more space and using all her strength, she was unable to free John after 2 hours and had to retreat. The rescue team decided to install a pulley system to pull John out, similar to what was used 5 years earlier for Brock Clark, who had been rescued from the same area. Transporting the equipment to John's location was an arduous task, taking hours because of the extremely tight tunnel and the need for small, flexible rescuers to carry the tools. As time passed, rescuers continuously talked to John to keep him calm. By now, John had been stuck for 12 hours, enduring an entire night upside down. His body was succumbing to the effects of gravity, blood pooling in his head, and breathing becoming increasingly difficult. Exhausted and delirious, John was showing signs of physical and mental deterioration. By 4 p.m., after 18 hours, the pulley system was ready. Rescuer Ryan reached John and asked, "How are you, John?" John replied, "It sucks. I'm upside down. I can't believe I'm upside down. My legs are killing me." Ryan tied ropes around John's legs and began pulling, but the intense pain in John's legs caused him to scream and ask Ryan to stop. John's nerves had become hypersensitive due to the prolonged compression. Despite the difficulties, they managed to lift John slightly, allowing him to make eye contact with Ryan. He was given an energy drink through a tube to replenish his strength. However, as progress was being made, disaster struck. A bolt in the pulley system failed, causing the setup to collapse. Ryan was struck on the head by a falling piece of equipment, rendering him unconscious. John, who had been partially lifted, slid back to his original position. When Ryan regained consciousness, he was bleeding from his head and was evacuated for medical attention. Another rescuer, Dave, John's father, attempted to assist, but the efforts were futile. John's body was unresponsive. After 27 hours, the rescuers confirmed that John had passed away due to the prolonged inverted position and lack of oxygen. The rescue operation involved 120 people over 27 hours, but John could not be saved. Doctors had predicted he could only survive 10 hours upside down, yet he endured nearly 3 times that duration. The rescuers were hailed as heroes for their relentless efforts in such a dangerous and confined environment. Ultimately, the authorities deemed it too risky to recover John's body. The Nutty Putty Cave was permanently sealed, with John's body left inside. A memorial plaque was installed at the entrance to honor his memory.